Hey friends, thanks for clicking on this video and joining in on another continuing conversation. And obviously from the title of this video, it's gonna raise a few eyebrows. It's like my last video raised a few eyebrows, and I've got comments from people that never ever commented on this channel before, or at least that I'm aware of. In the past several months, I've been paying more attention to the comment section and at least giving you a thumbs up and a heart, acknowledging that I've seen your comment. But regarding that last video I did, I said, you know, how does this information really serve you? Okay? And it's just interesting to see the comments, but I'll get to all of that in, you know, the inherent flaw with Remington revolvers, okay? So just bear with me for a few minutes. If you haven't been to the channel Yankee Marshall, I would suggest you go over there and pay attention to what he says about the guy that was training with an appendix carry, semi-automatic, training with live fire. And it happened. He drew the gun, it went off, and he's now affectionately called One Nut by his peers. You can go over there and watch that whole video and everything else, and how words, the Yankee Marshal is taking the guy's words and debunking the fact that he's trying to resolve in his mind, the guy that shot himself, how he's trying to resolve in his mind. It was just an accident. There's no such thing as an accident when it comes to guns. It's all negligence, okay? Now later in this video, if I remember, I'm going to reference the channel Tuco the Rat. Well, I'll just reference it now. He actually built a race gun on a 58 Remington frame, and he does triple fanning with it once he gets towards the end of the video. But the point that I want to get to is he didn't send it to Goons Guns to have them slick it up. He used the same main spring, the flat spring that came with that Pieta revolver, and he's doing triple shots. Okay? So there's a lot of talk out there saying, well, you need to send it to this gunsmith and have him slick it up so it'll run perfect every time. Go watch Tuco the Rat, and you'll see the picture of the 58 Remington in the thumbnail, and he does triple shots with it. Obviously the cylinder's tricked up and some of the internals are tricked up, but he uses the main spring, the flat spring that came with the gun. Now, with that being said, there's another video out there, one of those shorts where Tuco the Rat is drawing his gun and shooting balloons on his target. And the problem is whoever took that performance in front of a camera stops the video right when Tuco the Rat has got the gun fully cocked and it hasn't left the holster. That's all performance in front of a camera. It's all fun and games until you shoot your nut off, or until you shoot a hole in your foot. Okay? That's performance in front of the camera. Just like the people that sit and watch somebody's YouTube channel, my pet cobra loves me. So they give the idea that you can buy a cobra and have it as a pet and it'll never harm you until it kills you. Okay? There's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube land that you better not be copying, okay? Because that stuff is nothing but performance, because the guy that has the pet cobra, that he's letting slither on his hand and it doesn't. You don't know what that room temperature is. Maybe that room temperature's dropped down to, I don't know, maybe 52 degrees. You don't know that. You just don't. So a lot of this stuff on YouTube is done as a performance for their YouTube audience. Okay, and I've got a lot of respect for a lot of these guys that actually go out and do this stuff, but you got to remember, when you see somebody walking through the woods, you know that they've set up a camera. So, oh yeah, this shot's going to look, yeah, no, I better pan just a little, you know, the lighting is, that's going to look good. And then they walk in front of the camera. That's just people performing for YouTube. Or those people that start putting music in the front of their, you know, in front of their editing program, or when they're editing it, they put a little bit of background music. That tells you right there is performance. They're placating to an audience that's going to automatically say, great video, give it a thumbs up. So you have to remember, everything that you see, a lot of it's just YouTube camera performance. And these comments are not real world comments. They're fantasy world comments, okay? Such as the guy that left the comment, well, when I go out for a couple of days, I'm going to shoot 100, you know, at least 100 rounds. And I don't always bring enough water to clean my gun, or I don't pack enough grease because I don't have enough grease. I don't have enough room in my pouch because I shoot out of the pouch. Okay, fine. You never thought about this? Taking one of these empty cap cans and putting grease in it? That fits in anybody's pouch without any problems at all. See, a lot of these guys defend another YouTuber's work on these guns and then not realize what they do in somebody's comment section when they go over to defend that. Because you're going to go out for a couple of days and you don't have a tackle box. How did you get from your home to where you're going out for a couple of days? Probably a pickup truck. And you probably got this in your pickup truck. And if you don't have it, then that's negligent thoughtlessness on your part. Okay? You didn't think now far enough ahead. You thought enough to bring the camera to record you out there recreating for a YouTube audience so that you can get the thumbs up and the likes and the shares. You thought enough about that, but you didn't think enough. No, see, some of these guys want to get into other people's comment sections and try to make them look like that they're the idiots, that they don't really know what they're talking about. Okay? Or the guy, or the alleged gunsmith, well, I can build guns and they can go a whole competition, a whole event without having to put grease on their arbor. Okay, fine. I really don't care. But here's the problem. Everybody knows that the dirtier these guns get, the less accurate they get. So you've at least got your tackle box with you with a means to run a brush down the barrel. You know, it's real easy. Just remove the wedge, take off the barrel, and run a brush down there. Because if you're in a competition, the last thing you want to do is be shooting a dirty gun that doesn't hit what you're aiming at. But wait. The target's a 12 by 30. So, you know, you're going to hit the target even at the low corner. Okay, great. You're going to get the point. But that's not real world. Real world is you're going to be cleaning these guns. Okay? And one of the inherent problems with the Remington is that you have to remove the cylinder to run the brush down the barrel. Because if you don't, all that crap's going right into your chambers. Okay, so you have to remove this to run a brush. So when you have this removed, you have the opportunity to put a little bit of grease on it. Okay, that's real world. Even if you're playing in a competitive world. Okay, even if you're playing in a cowboy action, you're still going to have to do something to your gun to continue in the competition. Just like if you're out plinking in the woods, at some point, even if you have to walk back to your vehicle, you've got water to clean the gun. Okay? So I'm just not buying this horse shit in the comment sections anymore. I'm just simply not. Okay? So please, let's get real with this. Okay? Now, going on with the inherent design flaw of the Remingtons. Now, for you Remington boys out there, if there wasn't a design flaw, nobody would be showing you how to put grooves in these cylinder pins. Okay? Nobody would be showing you that if this did not have an issue. Alright? Now, what I did with my pins, and yes, I took one of my pins and I did that little channel cutout in front of it because I was looking at my Colt and saying, yeah, that'll hold grease. No, it don't, because the minute you shoot it, the grease that you put right here in front of the cylinder is going to get burnt off. That's why the other day I showed that cylinder putting grease in front of the ball doesn't serve much of a purpose, because when you shoot it, that fire burns on, blows all that grease out of the cylinder. So it doesn't really serve a purpose to put that much grease, okay? But thank you, Blackie Thomas, because I'm going to acknowledge where I got this from. Okay, Blackie Thomas, several years ago, talked about cutting shallow grooves in your cylinder pin. Okay, but what Blackie Thomas did not mention, in what I've done since then, is if you look at these cylinder pins on the leading edge, so when you cock the revolver, you can see which way the cylinder is rotating. That's where it's picking up the grease. Well, in these cylinder pins, there's a really shallow bevel on the leading edge. It's real shallow. What I've done on all of my pins for my Remingtons is I went ahead and cut that a little bit deeper so that there's more of a chance of getting grease on that bevel and that cylinder picking it up. Because if you've got a flat pin, a flat spot right here, which these do, they don't always necessarily pick up the grease. And on the one of my revolvers, I think is this one right here, my Navy, not only did I cut the grooves in it, I also cut a channel about that far back where the cylinder is. You can see where the face of the cylinder is. I cut a channel just that little further back, and that little channel holds a little bit of grease right there also. Okay? If there wasn't an inherent problem, nobody would be looking how to resolve this, in particular with the Remington revolvers. Okay? So I'm going to show you here what I'm absolutely talking about. First, I'll demonstrate with my 51 Navy. Okay? Get a little bit of my homemade grease, put some on my finger, and put it on the arbor. Okay? You want to make sure you get some forward. You make sure you want to get that well good and greased. Watch what happens when I install the cylinder. You see all that grease? All that grease right now, if you can see it, is getting pushed back right into the action. That's a good thing, because now your action is getting some of the grease. But the other thing is if I have to take it off for a moment or two, I'm not pushing any grease forward of the cylinder. So yes, these will stay greased a little bit longer, and if you notice on these Colt arbors, there's a little cutout, a little indentation right here that you would think would need grease. Once again, once this gun shoots, any grease you have forward of the cylinder is going to get blown away. So it really doesn't do you any good. Okay? And if you over grease them, you risk the chance of putting some of that grease in your cones. That's why the Colt design is a little bit superior. See, and if you use a heavy grease, they don't spin like, you know, everybody wants to take a revolver and spin the living crap out of it. Zzz! Oh man, is that good. Well, in the winter time, with some of your homemade greases, they stiffen up. And it does make them a little difficult to cock them back. Okay? That's why, for me personally, I'm going back to a synthetic grease. And if you go to the Pierce Brothers Outdoor Guide channel, where the guy shows and features his slicked up revolver, Remington revolver by Goons Guns. Goons Guns recommends using a synthetic grease. There's a reason for that. Okay, because this is what I shot all the years shooting cap and ball revolvers until I started my YouTube channel, watching YouTube videos and everybody saying, oh, you gotta make a homemade grease. And I get it. That homemade grease is a lot cheaper than this stuff was, especially by today's means and measures. Okay, this stuff is pretty expensive when you can make your own lube for just pennies. Okay, and then you've got this stuff out there. Well, you want to have a lube that's friendly for black powder, because not all lubes are friendly for black powder. Well, I shot this. I built my first cap and ball revolver when I was 18 years old. And this is all I've ever used. Okay, until I started doing this stuff on YouTube and listening to what everyone else has to say and say, yep, I'm going to do that. It is cheaper. I lube my felt wads with that. And it's a good lube for that. Okay, but you know, just like I watched Blackie Thomas, oh, you want to make sure your barrel's good and lubed, so you want to get that lube in the barrel. But when I first made my black powder gun, the cowboy action shooters that I hung around with in Arizona just said, you don't need to do that. Just put the lube in the forcing cone, and that first shot gets that lube right into the barrel. But do it however you want. Okay, I really don't care. Now on to the Remington. Okay, now I'm going to take a moment and take off the lever because it just drops and it binds everything up. So just hold on for a moment. Okay, got it removed. Drop the cylinder out and just show you that I did those cuts, and this is the one that I got the groove on top. Okay, and I also beveled it back so that there's more grease getting picked up when I rotate it. Now I'm going to go ahead and wipe this one off. I'm going to take my grease. Well, better yet, let me do this properly. Okay, you're going to start out the cylinder off the revolver, and more than likely some of you are going to take your grease and put it on this flat part of the base pin, of the cylinder pin. Okay, because you can't get anything on top, and you really can't reach those grooves because this only comes out so far because your lever stops it. Okay, so this is the only spot you're going to get grease on it. Okay, watch what happens. Imagine what would happen if I'm right now putting this back into place with the cylinder in place. Watch where that grease goes. Watch what it does. Most of it ends up the head of the cylinder pin. You don't have anything on top. All you've got is just that little bit sitting on top of that pin, and none of it, even at this point, gets back into the action to help keep the action lubricated. Okay? So most of that grease ends up on the head of the cylinder pin, and it serves no purpose. I don't know if you guys can see that well enough or not, but there it is. Okay, so let me wipe that off and demonstrate it from the other direction. Because see, no matter what you do with this pin, you have to either have it forward of the cylinder or lube it while it's in place. So I'm going to get some of my lube, and I'm going to lube it in place like what everybody would. Make the cylinder be all good and greased up. Okay, looks good. Would you agree? Watch what happens when I pull it forward to install the cylinder. That grease ends up right here. And because that grease has gone outside the hole, I don't think you can see, because that grease has gone outside the hole, when you put the cylinder in and push the pin, you're not dragging any grease back in with you. Okay? You're just not. So at that point, you're probably like me, going to wipe it off, and if you're like me, I'm just going to put it in the forcing cone. Okay? But you have to remember, when you do that, that cylinder pin is not getting the amount of grease that you think it's getting. You've either bound it up, bunched it up right here at the cylinder, at the head of the cylinder pin, or just in front of the cylinder, and the first shot you make, guess what's going to happen? Burn it off. And then you're going to start still having that buildup. If you go to the channel, I'll put a name of the channel in the text or right here and read it on the screen. I'll give you the channel now. I think it's Over Yonder Hunter. Yeah, I think that's what it is. He just did a video where he's shooting his 51 Navy brass frame, and he goes through 100 rounds without any grease on the arbor at all, and it worked flawlessly. It didn't bind up, and it worked flawlessly, or at least that's what he's saying. I wasn't there. I didn't see him do everything the way he describes, but I know that these Colts run a whole lot better with, you know, less grease, or they can run without the grease, because I've done that over the course of my life. Okay, but you would still want to put grease on it. These Remingtons, you have, no matter what you do to the pin, you still have a grease buildup on the face of this gun that gets hung up in the back of the barrel, because the clearance between, you know, the forcing cone and your cylinder is very small. Okay, that's the inherent problem. No matter how you grease these cylinder pins, either you lose a large amount of that grease when you're pushing it in, or when you grease it in place, pull it forward, the grease ends up just forward of your cylinder, and more than likely you're going to wipe it off. Okay, that's a design flaw, and once again, to emphasize the point, if it wasn't a design flaw, nobody would be showing you how to overcome that. Alright? It's a design flaw. Now, with that being said, I want the Remington boys to understand, I'm still going to take this gun when I'm out in the woods, because I'm not going to go out in the woods with a camera and shoot 100 rounds through it. Because that's just plinking in the woods for your YouTube audience. That's all that is. And when I do go up in the woods, and if I plan on doing that, I've got my tackle box with me, and I've got extra water in case I want to clean the gun when I'm out in the field. It's kind of dumb to go out in the field for a couple of days and not bring enough water to clean your gun, but yet you brought enough water to, I don't know, live on for a couple of days. That's why I don't buy these comments, because they're too easy to overcome. Listen to the words that people are using, okay? And when somebody wants me to do anything and I don't feel like doing it, I'll throw out the word, well, I'm not qualified to do that. Oh, you need to go find somebody who's more qualified than me. Even though I've got the experience to make, I don't know, you know, the trigger bolt spring that goes in here to even make a secondary spring to stiffen up the main spring. No, when people are making those comments like that, well, if you take it to a qualified gunsmith, you don't need to put a secondary spring. See, you got to go to a qualified gunsmith. There's a lot of crap on YouTube, and there's a lot of crap in the comment sections. I just don't buy it. Okay? Now, with that being said, and I've done this before, and I'm going to show it again now. Okay? When I first made my first cap and ball revolver, the cowboy action shooter guys were telling me, take your Remington cylinder and file the safety notch a little bit deeper down into the ratchet. Don't get into the ratchet itself, but just stay a little bit above the ratchet. And you should be able to see that, okay? Now, back then, I did all 6. Every new Remington I got my hands on, I actually built 2 Remington from kits. The first one I plum browned it. I really didn't like it, but I came to a point in my life that I had to get rid of it. Later I bought another one and I did the same thing. I did all 6. Okay? Then I watched Blackie Thomas's video here several years ago, and he says you only need to do one, and do the one that's parallel or close to the patent numbers in the cylinder. Well, this one doesn't have it. So I went ahead and did all 6. And then as I'm doing that, I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's got to be an easier way to do this without having to do all 6. So I got to looking at how everything works with a Remington. And if you look at your hammer, I got a brand new one here. If you look at that hammer, you can see from the face down, it just drops down straight, and it does a 45 to the back of the hammer. Let me get the gun out of the hand and get a pointer. You can see it goes straight down and then at 45 straight back. Okay, so I installed, well actually I used this hammer and I put it where the safety notches were, and I got to looking at how could that set deeper into the safety notches without having to file out all 6 safety notches down into the ratchet. So I got to looking at it, and I thought, well, wait a minute. If you take a look at your hammer, you'll see the indentation on the hammer from when it strikes the cones. You'll see that. Okay? What you can do is go just a little below it. I'm hoping you can see it, and I'll show it on this new one. I have it cut back just a little bit. Okay? Get a little closer maybe. Get my head out of the way. You might be able to see how I've got that notched back. Okay? Referring back to the factory one I still have, I just took and ground that 45 off. But I stayed below where the face of the hammer hits the cone. I stayed below that. And I ground it back just a little bit. Installed it in the gun, lowered the hammer on a ratchet, and watched it going back and forth. You know, I can go, I'm going to take off just a little bit more off that hammer and see what happens. So I took off a little bit more, put it into the safety notch, and it sat just as deep into that safety notch as it does when you file the back side just below the safety notch. Because like I said, I've got, you know, 2 spare cylinders for my sheriff's model. Okay, I've only got this 1 cylinder for this gun. But it wasn't until after I did all of this that I started looking at it. So that's a lot of time filing all 6 of those. So then I looked at the hammer itself. Well, where can I remove the metal off of the hammer and accomplish the same thing? And it's right there at that 45. So these guns you can absolutely carry 6 rounds and be perfectly safe. You know, that is unless you want to do the quick draw and hammer that back before it comes out of your holster and put a hole in your foot. Don't be so quick to believe everything you hear. That's why for me on this channel, you know, I read these comments and I can see where the obvious bullshit is. Because you're not going to go spend a couple days plinking in the woods with a cap and ball revolver and not bring enough water to clean the gun. You're going to have water back at your vehicle, or you're going to have your tackle box back at your vehicle. I'm not buying the crap comments, okay? I'm sorry. I'm just not doing it. Or am I buying the comments from a gunsmith? Well, I can trick up a gun, you know, and they can go through a whole event without having to, you know, re-grease the cylinder, but you're still pulling off the barrel to wipe the fouling out if you're a real serious competitor. If you're one of those competitors that just don't give a shit, then you're never going to clean the fouling out because you don't care how accurate it becomes on day number 2. I'm just not buying it, guys. Just not buying it. And once again, just to reiterate the point, if these Remingtons did not have an inherent design flaw, nobody today would be telling you how to overcome it. Nobody would be doing that. The fact that people are out there telling you and showing you how to overcome this should tell everybody the Remingtons have a design flaw. Now, if I had an absolute choice between my Remington and my Colts carrying in the field for several days going out deer hunting, the Remington's coming. Because I have spare cylinders for it. I can change these out in a hurry if I have to. It's just that simple, and it's not loaded full of crap. So, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you glean something from this, I hope you give it a thumbs up and share it with your bestest of buds. And if you haven't subscribed by now, I wouldn't even think about it either. Have a great day. Bye. Here's the synthetic grease that I'm going back to. I'm going to put some on that pin. Not much. Just kind of wipe it around. Top and bottom. Same thing. I'm going to pull it forward and it ends up right there. I'll take that little bit and put it back into the action. I'm going to install the cylinder. Now, I showed you with that homemade thicker grease what it does spinning the cylinder. Okay? Whole lot of difference using a synthetic grease.